Hi, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today, we're going to go into the heart of a young lady whose story is truly remarkable. It's a story of triumph, a story of inspiration, a story of overcoming. When she shared this story with me, there was all kind of questions that surfaced for myself. I think it had to do with more of education more than anything. Let's get right to the point. Let's have her tell her story. Let's welcome all the way from Arkansas, not Little Rock, Arkansas, but Arkansas, the one, the only, Cassandra Hill. Welcome to the show, Cassandra.
Thanks so much for the invitation, Andre.
You know, we talked a little bit during the pre-interviews, and I was truly blown away with your story. Clearly, you are a beast, to say the least, with the things that you've gone through. Before we get deep into your story, let's share a little bit about who you are with the audience before we get into your journey.
Sure. I am a transformation agent for Black women. I specialize in restoring our emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. And for those women I support who are entrepreneurs, we also increase their visibility, credibility, and allow them to have the vision that aligns with God's plan for their life and their business.
And that sounds powerful already. Now, growing up, you was diagnosed with a particular illness. Let's start there. What was you diagnosed with, and when did the illness, when was it first diagnosed, and what was it?
Initially, I was diagnosed as being anemic. And so for many years, I thought I was anemic because I had the super low energy and everything. And so I was treated for that, probably starting like high school years. From then up until I was working in corporate America for that long. I graduate school in my 20s,
right,
and started in corporate. So yeah, for several years I was treated as being anemic.
Like, what was some of the things that you was feeling? What were some of the symptoms that made day-to-day life for you a struggle before we tell what you was actually diagnosed with? Like, what were some of the things that you was going through that they put you in this particular category that you was going through?
You know, some of the challenges I would have, you know, for anyone who's been in college, I'm sure you can relate, raise your hand, where you have those late nights where you're up writing papers and you are just tired as all outdoors. Mm-hmm. And so I would have those experiences, but even just sitting in my dorm room, at my desk writing a paper, I would just get so tired. And it's like, okay, I mean, yeah, I know being a college student is a lot of work, and I would work a part-time job, but even most of my part-time jobs were like tutoring other students. You know, I wasn't doing anything laborious, but I would be so fatigued. I remember one time I almost passed out sitting down, like writing a paper and literally passed out. And so things like that, times where just my body wouldn't properly absorb food, where I couldn't keep food down. That was another challenge I had as well.
How did when did it become so serious that because you've already been diagnosed with a particular condition, you
Mhm.
know something just isn't right. When do you take
Yeah.
it to the next level to get a second opinion?
Well, I got a whole lot of second opinions, but
Really?
the problem is, yes, the problem is a lot of times, especially for Black women, many healthcare professionals assume we have a high tolerance for pain. So when we present with having any type of pain related condition, they just chunk it off to, oh, you'll be okay.
Mhm.
Because I went to so many doctors. By the time I got done with college and entered corporate, I was living in Texas, is where I began my corporate career. And, I had access to all sorts of doctors, Dallas, San Antonio. I think I even went to some doctors in Houston, but, um,
Were these all medical advice from people of color, or was it the spectrum all over the board? White, black, Indian? Was it all over?
it was all over. If I had some white doctors, had some Middle East. Honestly, I didn't come across a uh, primary care physician that I dealt with regularly until I moved to Atlanta.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you get to Atlanta, what I think is kind of odd that you mentioned Houston, San Antonio, Dallas. You mentioned some major hitters here in the medical field and
Mhm.
research and development. Did it ever wonder? Did you ever wonder what notes are they looking at that they all cannot seem to understand that you're suffering from something? Did what was your input to them? Because or what notes were they looking at? Because you still are having issues here.
Yeah. You know, I think everyone has that gut sense where deep down in your gut, I'm like, okay, I'm a gerontologist, so I know aging backwards and forwards. I may not be familiar with this, but I know my body and I know what you're saying doesn't correlate to what's going on in my body. So I always knew that. And it just always seemed like no one took the time to dig any further, you
Really?
know. And honestly, by the time I got to Atlanta, that one of the major difference was I started doing my own research. I'm like, okay, you work in healthcare and you might not be familiar with whatever challenge you're dealing with, but research backwards and forwards. And so honestly, I'm just thankful to God that I finally got fed up with not getting the answers that made me satisfied,
Hmm.
because it literally was me doing my own research. And the more I studied about just various diseases, and the more I looked, uh, particularly at autoimmune conditions,
Right.
I realized you probably got an autoimmune condition.
So when you wind up going to Atlanta, and it's funny, we all need to take notes from you. The importance of instead of relying on the doctors to give you second or third opinions, take the time to research yourself because you've done that. And self care is usually where it starts. We shouldn't always rely on physicians when it's concerning self care, our own treatment. So when you was doing your research and you found that it was an auto-related immune illness that you were suffering from. How did you bring this to the doctors? Because I'm pretty sure their egos get in the way, with you trying to come and
Yeah.
tell them their job. How did you bring it to them, your research?
Well, once I started looking at autoimmune conditions, I was just blown away because one, I was the case book. I mean, I'm like, oh my goodness, like why no one ever thought to do this test. So when I went to the doctor, I told my doctor, I didn't even ask. I told my doctor, you're running a ANA, what's called an anti-nuclear antibody test. You're running this test on me. And I didn't give an option. Uh, and I had requested all my medical records from Texas because I was really heavy in the research at this point. And I told him, you're running this test on me.
What did he say when you
And he
told
did.
him to run that test? Did he ask you, how did you even know what that test was about?
He was like, well, he was wanting to know why. And I was like, I've had a lot of problems with my health. I've never got clear answers. Even now, you're telling me I have a cold, but I've done a round of antibiotics and this cold hasn't gotten any better.
Right.
And here I am, I'm in my 30s.
Right.
The average 30 something person doesn't feel this way from a cold.
When your test comes back, what was the news?
The news was I was correct and I had systemic lupus. I was diagnosed as having systemic lupus.
Explain to the viewers exactly, to the best of your ability, what that details.
Okay, a lot of times when we think about lupus, we just think of it as a condition, but there's different types. There is nephritis, lupus nephritis that affects the kidney. There's discoid lupus, primarily affects the skin. And then there's drug-induced lupus that comes from all these prescription drugs that a lot of people are put on by doctors.
Right.
And then the type that I have, systemic, that just means it's widespread. So it can attack different parts of your body. It just looks different. As I mentioned earlier, like the cold, it really wasn't a cold. It was lupus affecting my respiratory system. So me just having difficulty breathing, having low oxygen. That was
so it can travel to any part of your body, even the muscular, the muscular system as well at any given time. But you do have symptoms when this happens, correct?
Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Is it treatable?
Yes, it is. Okay. Because, and I'm going to tell you guys, with God, all things are possible. We read God's word sometimes, but I think sometimes we don't fully believe what we read. Mm-hmm. For me, because I went misdiagnosed for so many years, by the time I got diagnosed and started, at that time, doctors had me doing chemo drugs, and I was doing some other medication. But anyone who's ever undergone even just the chemo drugs, it comes with so many side effects. And I thought, like, this cannot be my life. And I prayed to God. And the more I prayed for healing in his time, he blessed me to heal.
Mm.
And what it looked like, he sent the right resources. I ended up going back to college, taking courses in alternative medicine, health and wellness, and started doing the work on myself. And the more work I did and the more I learned, I started feeling better. And to my surprise, because I wasn't, all I knew was traditional medicine. And like I said, I had a background in healthcare. So I really wasn't familiar with alternative medicine like that. So I went back to the doctor and they went on my labs and everything was normal.
You know,
Every single thing. And that was 8 years ago. So God has blessed me to be in remission for the past 8 years.
congratulations on that. Let's go back a little bit because you shared something that I want to share with the viewers. It's important that we take control of our health. I respect doctors. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with doctors. There's nothing wrong with medication. But here it is, you was diagnosed from a young age and carried this all the way to your 30s. And in this process, people need to understand this too. There was a lot more struggles. You lost 5 of your children during this process. Your marriage suffered through this process. Knowing that you could have, knowing that there was probably, let me rephrase this. I know there's probably moments of your life that you wish that they had maybe taken a little bit more initiative to find out what was going on, because maybe the loss of the children, and you said 2 of them were twins, may not have happened. Am I correct on that?
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
What was life like for you, knowing as a female happily married that you want children, and all of a sudden, because of misdiagnosed, you had to suffer the loss of your children? Tell the viewers what that's like for you.
Going through that process, it was very, very difficult. As a woman, most women desire having children. Mm-hmm. And so when you're out, I can remember sometimes I would just be out like Walmart, Target, just wherever, running errands, doing all the things, and you'll see a woman with a baby and you'll just break down.
Wow.
And of course people will look at you like, what is wrong with her? And so you're running out the store, and it's very difficult. And then for a lot of women, we attach our worth to having a baby, right, to being not that you can't be a mother in other ways, because you can, but a lot of times we attach our worth to birthing a baby.
When you lost your children, and you was dealing with your marriage, how much of a strain was this on your relationship? Because let me kind of amplify this a little bit more for the viewers. You haven't been correctly diagnosed yet.
No.
During this. So how much of a strain was this on you, your marriage, and on you in general? How did you, after the loss of even one child, what did you seek to get you back, to keep you stable and to keep your husband stable and to keep the family stable, to be honest?
Yeah. Well, for me, after my second pregnancy, and that was with the twins, after losing the twins, I did decide to do some therapy and work on me. My ex-husband chose not to do that. That's another thing in our community. Uh, Now it's starting to change more, but therapy, counseling, coaching isn't always widely accepted.
Mhm.
But I knew I needed that. It put a tremendous strain on me as well as the marriage. Honestly, shortly after my last miscarriage is when the marriage came to end. Uh, I uh, I was in an unhealthy, toxic relationship,
Mhm.
and a lot of times for us to heal, we have to examine relationships, whether it's marriage, whether it's just friends, but we really have to examine those uh, close relationships and decide, are these individuals supporting my healing, my well being, or are they hindering it? And if they're hindering it, and especially if they're intentionally hindering it, it's in your best interest to remove yourself from those
Did
relationships.
you have a support cast during this time prior to finding out what you was actually diagnosed with outside of your husband? Your
Yes.
support cast? Okay, great. Right.
Well, yeah. Yeah, he really wasn't um, very supportive. But thankfully, God sent people in my life who were. One person I would like to shout out, my best friend, my sister, um, Catherine. Catherine we met. Oh my goodness! I know we've been knowing each other probably 15 years or more. Um, but she has been a blessing to my life.
That's sometimes all it takes is one. Sometimes all it takes is one. Your
Yeah.
husband kind of knew what you was going through. So let me do this where it makes a little sense. You was married to him, so he had to know your condition. And I can't speak for him, only you can. Do you think that maybe because he didn't know the conditions that maybe it had a toll on him as well and the loss of the children? I'm just hypothetically thinking.
Well, I would think that this is me being as objective as possible. Let's say you have a gushing wound. Like you look down at your arm and it is gushing. I mean, blood is all over the place, and hit you hadn't hit it, you hadn't been in any type of accident, you just see this gushing wound. When you see it, and let's say you see it and your wife is there seeing it, do you think she's gonna, like, and you guys go to the hospital, ER, whatever? Let's say you leave there and they can't tell you why that happened. They were just able to stop the bleeding and give you wound care,
Right.
and you go home. Do you think because she doesn't know that why the gushing happened, that she's going to say, well, Andre, uh, I need you to get out here and wax my vehicle. I need you to, or is she going to care enough about your well being to say, hey, I want to check on you. Are you doing okay? Is there anything I can do? So I believe when a person truly cares about you and loves you, they're gonna be there.
Okay.
Will they be maybe not know like what's the best, like what you need? There may be times that happens, but they love you and they're going to put forth effort.
Now that you've gone through, and let me first say thank you so much for coming to share this beautiful story of triumph. That's what I call it. Triumph through adversity. Definitely that beast mindset. Out of all of this, what do you want the viewers to get out of this? What have you learned from all this outside of your strong belief and your resilience? What do you want the viewers to get from your episode?
You know, I listen up if you don't hear anything else. It does not matter what happens to you. Things that you feel like it's impossible to overcome, you can overcome. You can, as Andre put it, you could triumph. And that triumph comes from trusting God and knowing that He will never leave your side.
So, what's your life like now, despite all of the mishaps? Well, I don't even call it mishaps because I think in our life's journey, things happen for a reason, and there is a lesson
Yes.
within those
Yes.
things that happen. I don't think things just happen to people. They happen to either teach you something, or you're missing the big picture here. What's your life like
Yeah.
now?
Right now, I am so thankful to God because those tests have allowed me to have a testimony and to have strategies to support the people God has called me to serve. I've been in business now 6 years as a master life coach, as a holistic health practitioner, certified in women's entrepreneurship from the Cornell University, and all of these things that honestly, if all those challenges hadn't happened, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now within my business, being a speaker, keynoting events, being an author, being blessed to have written books to inspire and encourage others on becoming the best version of themselves.
Right.
That's what I'm doing these days.
How can the viewers reach out to you? And what are some of the books that you've written? How can we get a copy of those books?
Sure. My books are definitely online on Amazon, Barnes and Noble online, as well as Walmart online. I do have a devotional, He Restoreth My Soul, Triumph Through Adversity, that's available on all those platforms. And I have a prayer journal as well, Kneeling at the Throne. I'm part of a project, myself and a little over 100 Black women came together to birth Love Letters to My Girls. But the easiest way to learn about everything I'm doing in the world, upcoming speaking engagements, services, books, resources, is if you go to my Linktree /Healer Cassandra, Linktree /Healer Cassandra. If you go there, you'll see all the details about what's going on with me.
And definitely there's a lot going on. Once again, I'd like to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to come and share such a beautiful and impactful story. I think one of the other lessons outside of what you are doing now for the community and worldwide with empowering other women is the idea that you took something and made people realize that self-care it's still
Yeah.
up to you
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah.
this has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton Show.